Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in today. We're going to be taking a deep dive into A Parent's Guide to Raising Grieving Children.
Mhm.
And, this book really struck a chord with me, especially when it talked about how kids of different ages understand death.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? You really have to meet kids right where they're at when it comes to their understanding.
Right. And that whole idea reminds me of what you were sharing about your niece at her mom's funeral.
Oh gosh, yeah.
She asked when they were going home to have cake.
I know, it just breaks your heart.
It does, and it just makes you think, how does a child process something so big?
Yeah, and as you know firsthand, it's important to use language that makes sense to them. At that age, death might seem like going away on a trip or something.
Hmm.
They don't always get that it's forever.
And yeah, that can lead to these really tough situations like that story in the book about the child who wished their parent back to life.
Oh
It
yeah.
just shows how much magical thinking is a part of it all.
Absolutely, and sometimes those misunderstandings can make them feel guilty like it was their fault.
Yeah, like they had that fight with the person before they died and now they think they're somehow responsible.
Exactly.
It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah,
But I think the book does a good job at explaining those different reactions by age.
it does.
You can't expect a little kid to understand death the same way a teenager would.
Right, like preschoolers, they think about death like someone going away for a while. The book actually had this really poignant example of a child who found comfort in their grandparents coming over after their parent died.
Oh, wow.
Almost like they'd forgotten about their parent because someone was there to take care of them.
That's like their world is all about who's there at that moment.
Yeah.
And then you have those elementary school kids who are starting to get that death is permanent.
Yeah,
But then that understanding can bring on a whole new set of fears.
totally. Like in the book, it talks about this child who was terrified that their other parent would die too,
Right.
which makes sense when you think about it.
Their whole world just got turned upside down.
Exactly.
It makes you realize how important it is to reassure them and talk openly about everything.
Yeah, definitely.
And then there's teenagers who might understand death in their heads, but emotionally it's a whole different thing.
Absolutely. It's one thing to know it intellectually, but to really feel it,
Right.
that's different. The author described this teenager who went outside to check if the sun was still shining after their parent died. Like, it was so unbelievable to them that the world would even still be working.
Wow.
It just felt unreal.
It just shows you that even when they understand more, the emotional impact is still huge.
For sure.
It really does make you realize how much their world changes. And, the book talks about how different types of loss affect kids in different ways.
Yeah, and it's something that you and I both have personal experience with. Losing a parent is huge.
Absolutely. It's like everything shifts.
It really is their sense of security, how they see their family, their whole future. It's
Right.
all different.
And it made me think about what you were saying about worrying who would do all the everyday things after your dad died.
Oh, yeah.
Like the book gave this example of a kid who was worried about who would yell at them now that their dad was gone.
I know, it's kind of funny, but also really sad.
It is, because it shows how much those little things matter.
They do.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's often this fear that the other parent might die too. It's a lot to handle.
It really is for the parent and the child. And then
Hmm.
there's losing a brother or sister.
Yeah, that's tough too, because you lose that person who grew up with you, who gets you in a way that no one else does.
Like they were just talking about this kid in the book who missed having their older sibling around to protect them from bullies.
It's like losing a built-in best friend.
Exactly. And when that's gone, it leaves such a hole.
Yeah, and it can make kids scared that they'll lose someone else in the family too.
That makes sense. Like now they've seen that it can actually happen.
Right, and that fear can show up in all sorts of ways.
Hmm.
Like the book talked about how some kids start acting younger again.
Like regret.
Exactly. It's like they're trying to go back to a time when things felt safer.
Yeah, trying to feel that comfort again. And then there's the part about losing a friend, which I think sometimes gets overlooked.
It does, but it can be just as hard for kids and teenagers, especially.
Right? Because those friendships are so important at that age.
Totally. They give you a sense of belonging and someone to share everything with. And, for some kids, their friends are the only ones who truly get them.
That really resonated with me. And, this whole idea of continuing bonds really stood out to me,
Yeah.
especially when you were talking about still talking to your dad in your head.
It's like he's still there in a way.
And it's not just internal either. Like the book talked about this teenager who said, when I pick my nose, I think about my mom seeing me.
Mm.
She always told me to stop doing that.
I know it's funny, but it's true. It shows how those little things can keep the person alive in your memory.
Exactly. And the book really encourages parents to support that, not try to stop it.
Yeah, it's a natural part of grieving.
It's about acknowledging that those connections can be healing. It really is. And it's important to remember that grief can look like so many different things.
It really can.
Like you were saying about the dreams you've been having about your dad.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like, they're not always sad dreams or anything, but
Right.
I wake up and I'm thinking about him, and I feel like he's been right there.
And the book actually talks about that.
It
Yeah, it's
does.
all part of those continuing bonds, keeping that connection going.
Like, even when you don't mean to?
Yeah. And it made me think of that example they gave in the book about the teenager who said, when I pick my nose, I think about my mom seeing me. She always told me to stop doing that.
Ah.
It's like these little everyday things that remind you of them.
Exactly. And the book really emphasizes that parents and educators should support those little things, those memories.
Absolutely not try to shut them down or say, oh, you're doing that again.
Right. It's all part of the process.
It's how they keep those people alive in their lives.
Yeah. And it's a good reminder for all of us that grief isn't something you just get over and then it's done.
It's a journey.
Exactly. You learn to live with it and it changes over time.
And I was even thinking about that with my own grieving process. Sometimes I catch myself feeling impatient. Like, shouldn't I be over this by now?
Yeah, I feel that way too sometimes.
But then I have to remind myself that there's no right way to do this.
Nope. Everyone's different.
And for kids, it's got to be even more complex.
Absolutely. They don't always have the words to explain what they're going through.
This book has really given me a lot to think about. And honestly, it's made me realize how much my own experiences with death as a child have shaped how I see all of this now.
Oh, totally. Our own childhoods have a big impact.
Yeah, like how we were supported or not supported through those times.
It all shapes how we understand grief and loss.
And this book really gives you the tools to support kids in a way that maybe we didn't get ourselves.
It does. It gives you a new perspective.
So for anyone listening who's going through this with a child or a teenager, just remember to listen to them, really listen, and let them know that their feelings are valid, however they're feeling.
And create a safe space for them to grieve in their own way.
Exactly, because there's no one right way.
And don't forget to take care of yourself, too.
Yes, that's so important.
It's like when you're on an airplane, they tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Right.
You have to take care of yourself so you can be there for them.
That is such a good reminder. Well, this has been quite a deep dive. It really has.
It has
A lot to unpack.
a lot to think about.
And, as always, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas and see what resonates with you, what feels right for you in your own life.
And if you're looking for more support, don't be afraid to reach out.
Absolutely. There are people out there who get it, who want to help.
And remember, you're not alone in this.
Thanks for joining us on this journey today.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.